The rain poured softly over the mansion's driveway as Emma stood outside, clutching her small suitcase against her chest. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her clothes damp from the storm, and her trembling hand rested over her growing belly. She was 7 months pregnant, yet tonight she had no home. Her in-laws had slammed the door in her face just moments ago, their words echoing in her mind like a cruel curse. "You don't belong in this family anymore," her mother-in-law had said coldly. "Leave before we call the guards." Emma had married into one of the wealthiest families in the city, but love didn't seem to matter when power and pride took over. Her husband, Daniel, was away on a business trip abroad. The moment he left, everything changed. The same people who once smiled at her had turned their backs, whispering that she was only after his money. But Emma never cared about his fortune. She only wanted his love and a safe home for their unborn child. Now, standing in the dark with nowhere to go, Emma whispered to herself, "Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll believe me." But as the thunder rolled above her, doubt filled her heart. She slowly turned away from the gate, planning to find shelter somewhere far from the cruel eyes that had once called her family. What Emma didn't know was that Daniel's flight had just landed. He had received a call that would change everything, a call that revealed what really happened in his absence. Within hours, his luxury car would pull up to that same mansion, and the people who had thrown her out were about to face a truth they never saw coming. And when he arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. As Daniel's car sped through the city streets, his mind was filled with confusion and disbelief. The call he'd received from the family driver replayed in his head. Emma had been thrown out of the house, accused of bringing shame to the family. None of it made sense. Just 2 weeks ago, he'd kissed her goodbye at the airport, promising he'd be back before their baby's first kick. Emma wasn't just his wife. She was the one person who had seen him as more than a billionaire. She'd fallen in love with the man behind the money. Back at the mansion, his parents sat in the grand living room, acting as if nothing had happened. Daniel's mother, Eleanor, sipped her tea calmly, her diamond bracelet glinting under the chandelier. "She had to go," she murmured to her husband. "A woman like her could ruin our reputation." His father nodded silently, more concerned about the family's image than his son's happiness. To them, Emma's humble background was an embarrassment, a reminder that Daniel had chosen love over status. Meanwhile, Emma had taken shelter in a small guest house near the old marketplace. She sat on the edge of a creaky bed, her hands resting over her belly as she tried to calm herself. The baby kicked, as if sensing her fear. She had no money, no phone, and no one she could call for help. Every time she thought about Daniel, her chest tightened. Would he believe her? Or would he side with them? Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt heavy with something coming, something that couldn't be avoided. Daniel's car was minutes away from the mansion now, and as his headlights cut through the night, one thing was certain: someone in that house was about to regret every cruel word they'd spoken. The mansion gates swung open as Daniel's car rolled in, its tires crushing the gravel in a slow, tense rhythm. The staff froze, sensing something was wrong. Daniel stepped out, rain still dripping from his coat, his eyes sharp and unreadable. The butler tried to greet him, but Daniel brushed past without a word. The air inside felt colder than the storm outside. His parents looked up, surprised to see him home early, but one glance at his face silenced every excuse they had prepared. "Where's Emma?" he asked quietly, his voice low but dangerous. His mother straightened, pretending not to understand. "Daniel, we did what was necessary. She wasn't right for this family." Before she could finish, Daniel's hand slammed against the table. "She's my wife, and she's carrying my child." The sound echoed through the hall, making even the servants flinch. While the tension grew inside, Emma sat miles away, staring out the window of the guest house. The kind old woman who owned the place had given her a blanket and some tea, but sleep wouldn't come. She replayed the last few days in her mind. The whispered insults, the lies, the forged messages sent to Daniel's office to make her look unfaithful. She had no proof, but she knew someone in that mansion had planned everything. Meanwhile, Daniel searched the rooms, demanding answers. A frightened maid finally confessed that Emma hadn't done anything wrong, that the entire story was made up by someone desperate to remove her from his life. Daniel's chest tightened as realization struck. This wasn't just cruelty, it was betrayal. Outside, thunder rumbled again, almost as if the sky mirrored his fury. Somewhere out there, Emma was alone and scared, and the people responsible were still sitting comfortably under his roof. But not for long. Daniel's anger simmered beneath the surface as he walked out of the mansion, his fists clenched, his thoughts racing. The night air was thick with silence, but inside him, a storm was raging. He couldn't believe the people he trusted most had turned his own wife out into the streets. Every minute she spent alone felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. He grabbed his phone and called every driver, every contact, demanding they search the city until she was found. His voice cracked when he said her name, but he didn't care any more about pride or appearances. Back inside, his mother paced nervously. "He'll come to his senses," she whispered to herself, but even she didn't believe it. The truth was slipping out. Her lies, her manipulation, everything she'd done to keep control over her son's life. His father sat silently, watching, realizing too late that greed had destroyed something pure. Servants moved quietly through the hallways, whispering about the storm outside and the one brewing within. Meanwhile, Emma stood by the guesthouse window, staring at the faint glow of city lights in the distance. She felt a strange pull in her heart, a sense that something was coming. She didn't know that at that very moment, Daniel's car had turned onto the old market road. He wasn't sure where she was, only that he wouldn't stop until he found her. As the rain started again, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the mansion in the distance, where the truth was about to come crashing down. Daniel's headlights cut through the darkness like blades, his heartbeat matching the rhythm of the thunder. He was getting closer, and every second brought him nearer to the moment everything would change forever. Just as Daniel's car neared the old marketplace, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. A trembling voice came through the line. It was the maid who had helped Emma pack her things that night. "Sir, you need to know the truth. It wasn't just your mother," she whispered nervously. "Someone else planned everything." Daniel's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Who?" he demanded, his voice low and strained. There was a pause, followed by a shaky breath. "Your cousin, Victor. He's been after your position in the company for months. He told your parents Emma was leaking family secrets. He forged the evidence." Daniel's heart pounded. It all made sense now. The fake emails, the sudden board rumors, the distance between him and Emma. Victor had always been jealous of Daniel's success, but Daniel never imagined he'd go this far. The betrayal ran deeper than he thought. It wasn't just about Emma anymore. It was about everything he'd built. At that same moment, a black SUV stopped outside the guest house where Emma was staying. The old landlady peeked through the curtain nervously as two men stepped out, asking questions about a young pregnant woman. Emma froze when she heard her name. Her instincts told her to run. Grabbing her small bag, she slipped out the back door into the rain, her heart racing. Meanwhile, Daniel's phone lost signal as he turned down the narrow road leading toward the market. He didn't know Emma was only a few streets away, or that Victor's men were already looking for her. The clock was ticking, and every passing second pushed both of them closer to a collision that would expose every hidden lie. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one about to break. The rain fell harder as Daniel's car screeched to a stop near the marketplace. He jumped out, shouting Emma's name into the storm. His voice echoed through the narrow streets, desperate and raw. Then, through the downpour, he saw a figure, Emma, stumbling across the road, clutching her stomach. Relief and fear collided in his chest as he ran to her. But before he could reach her, the black SUV appeared from the corner, its headlights glaring through the rain. Daniel threw himself forward, pulling Emma out of the way just as the car skidded past, crashing into a fruit stall. Both of them collapsed onto the wet ground, shaken but alive. Daniel held her tightly, his heart racing. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'll never let them hurt you again." Tears mixed with the rain as Emma looked up at him, her fear slowly fading. "You believe me now?" she asked softly. "I always did," he said. "I just didn't know how deep their lies went." Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance. The police arrived, having traced Victor's men after the maid's confession. Victor was caught trying to flee the city with stolen company documents, proof of his plan to frame Emma and destroy Daniel's reputation. The truth unraveled quickly, leaving the family stunned. Daniel's parents, pale and silent, could no longer hide behind their excuses. The empire they tried to protect had nearly destroyed their own son. But as the chaos settled, Daniel's phone buzzed with one last message, an anonymous text that read, "Victor wasn't working alone." His eyes widened, realizing someone even closer had helped orchestrate it all. He turned toward the mansion in the distance, the lights still glowing through the rain, and knew this story wasn't over yet. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean under a soft sunrise. Daniel sat beside Emma in the hospital room, holding her hand as she rested. The doctors said both she and the baby were safe, though the night's events had shaken her deeply. For the first time in days, there was peace in the air, a quiet sense of relief that they had made it through. Later that day, the police confirmed what the message had hinted. Eleanor, Daniel's own mother, had secretly helped Victor. She had never intended for things to go so far, but her fear of losing control over her son had driven her into terrible choices. When Daniel confronted her, she broke down completely. "I thought I was protecting you," she whispered, "but I see now I was only protecting my pride." Daniel's voice softened. "Family isn't about power or reputation. It's about love and truth, and you forgot that." In the weeks that followed, Daniel cut all business ties with Victor and rebuilt the company's trust from the ground up. Emma, though still healing, found her strength again. She chose forgiveness over bitterness, knowing that peace was more valuable than revenge. When their baby girl was born, Daniel named her Grace, because that's what had carried them through everything. Standing outside the mansion months later, Daniel and Emma watched the sunrise again, this time with their daughter in his arms. The house that once felt cold now seemed like a home again. Emma smiled softly and said, "Sometimes we have to lose everything to remember what really matters." Daniel nodded, kissing her forehead. The storms had ended, but their story had only just begun. A story built on faith, love, and second chances.